Hey everybody, Chris Weber with Weber Reviews, and today we're going to be going over the Seiko SARB017. That's right, the Alpinist. But before we get into it, a quick wristwatch check. I am wearing a different Seiko. I'm wearing the reference 6139-7100. This is an older Seiko with that historical automatic chronograph movement, arguably the first chronograph automatic produced by anyone, but certainly the first automatic chronograph produced by Seiko. We can get into that in another review. This one is affectionately also known as the Darth Vader because that helmet-shaped case and the black dial. The dial has got a lot of depth to it, a lot of fun 70s colors popping out. I've got yellow, I got green, I got orange, I got white, I got black. Tachometer scale inside the bezel. I'll save that for another review, but for the rest of the day, we're going to be talking about the Seiko SARB017 Alpinist, which I have here on a leather NATO style strap because the strap that comes with this thing, not great. You'll have heard that in every other review that you've listened to or watched. You'll have read it 1,000 times on the internet. They gotta save money somewhere. So before I even show you the watch, I will show you that strap, and here it is. It is not even attached to the watch. I pulled it off very first thing. You can see the tags are still attached, and one of the fun tags, you can see how you can use that internal rotating bezel to actually help orienteer when you need to, when you're out there in the wilderness. And what you can also see is all the JDM sort of reference things, right? Prices in yen, all the different information is in Japanese. I can't read Japanese. It's all there. It all came in the box, and that's where it's going to stay because that strap was just uncomfortable. Look, they didn't even sign the buckle because I don't think Seiko was proud of that. I think what they're proud of is the rest of the watch. So, strap aside, it's on this cool leather NATO. I'm actually going to put it on real quick. One thing as you're watching this, you may notice that it looks like I'm an extra from a Saw movie. I did a lot of yard work this weekend, and the plants fought back. So sorry if I'm just scarred up and cut up, and holy smoke. Last time my fingers are gross, this time my arms are cut up. I'm a mess. The SARB017. A watch that is well-loved and for very good reason. Now, this is just a beautiful watch. I can say that without reservation. The combination of the green dial with the gold Arabics and indices, as well as those gold tone hands, I think just make for a super classic watch. Something that absolutely is a little bit of a throwback to the past, but also, I don't know, it just really captures what I think Seiko were trying to do with this watch, which is that rugged watch, the sports watch, that can also be worn every day in a more formal setting. I certainly think this is something that can go from business to casual super easily. It could be your one watch to rule them all if that was your style. I think from a dial perspective, that certainly can go both ways. It has a nice historical feel from those cathedral-esque hands. I believe they're called squelette hands, and the applied Arabics, the numerals. And it's really the case that I think takes it into that sort of exploring, mountaineering kind of vibe that the Alpinist is known for. So what is it about the watch that I think stands out so much? Well, certainly it's the dial. Now, green isn't for everybody, and I know that's the case, but it certainly seems to be kind of picking up in popularity, at least at the time of this filming. We've got this watch, which is certainly a very common green dialed watch. Then from Rolex, you've got the Hulk, right, which a lot of people hate when you call Rolex's nicknames, but we're all friends here. There's also the one they call Kermit, which is green and black. That green is certainly not going to go with everything you wear. In fact, quite frankly, I don't think it matches anything I'm wearing today. Maybe a little bit of the maroon and the green are opposites on the color wheel, so that kind of works. I don't care. I wear it all the time. I wear it every weekend. I wear it with anything, especially on a strap like this, just sort of a nondescript leather NATO. I think it just fits in nicely with everything. The green pops. It's this iridescent green. It's got that sunburst kind of finish. There's always a bar of light reflecting across it in a lighter green, and as you sort of rotate the watch, that bar of lighter green sort of rotates the same way the light is reflecting off the dial. It has a sapphire crystal, and everything has just a little shine. In fact, where I have it right now, and I'll see if I can capture it as well in a macro shot, the indices, the numbers in the hands just explode with that gold color reflecting, and the green fades almost to nothing. And then as I rotate it, now they all get more subdued and the green pops out. It truly is something you could just stare at. I love the way the light plays off of this. There are many more expensive watches with many more fancy materials that are meant to do the same thing. Capture and reflect the light in a playful way. I don't think you need to spend $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 to get it. I think with a watch like this, you're getting that same kind of playfulness, something that you just want to stare at. Where are the reflections? I can see part of my own peephole right there on the #1 index. Hippopotamus, that's not a good example. Octopi, that's what I'm trying to say. In any case, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I think some of the smaller details are often not mentioned, such as the date window. Now, it's got a black date wheel, which is interesting because it's really the only black on the watch. The chapter ring is a dark gray, but the date wheel truly is a deep black with white numerals. It's outlined just so perfectly with a little tiny gold box. Little gold box, green on the inside, then the date wheel. It's just nice, right? They went for that old look. In fact, I think everything about this watch is a little bit grandfather clocky. Something that says we're going to spend the time decorating what you see to make it captivating, right? And so that little tiny detailing, like a pinstripe of gold tone around that date window. Another one that's really hard to see, but I think does make a difference, is at each of the hour markers, there's a perfect half sphere, a hostess snowball, if you will, of Seiko lume. But around the base of those snowballs is another gold ring. Very, very, very subtle and very, very small. But how hard must that have been? They had to figure out some cool way to get that around, get the lume inside, get it perfectly half spherical, hemispherical, spherical, and then get it onto the dial. It's really well done. The printing on the dial is super sharp and crisp, using a lot of white around the outside, so for the seconds and minutes tracks there, a lot of white, and then the inner rotating compass bezel is, again, that sort of charcoal gray with white printing, and at the north, northeast, and northwest markers, again, a little of that gold tone brought back in. Now, it's not that same iridescent gold, it's just a gold color, it's almost an orange. But again, it's really nice. The chapter ring is dished and beveled, as typical as you'd expect, and as you rotate it around, the rotation, the operation of it is super duper smooth. It's operated by this crown here at 4 o'clock. Now, the crown is not screw down, it doesn't lock, so any bump, any movement here will actually move that chapter ring. End of the world? I think not. Who doesn't have a compass? I can't be sure. Who's going to be lost in the woods without one? Only a dope. But if that dope happens to be you, and your chapter ring can serve as a compass, well, hooray! You might be able to find your way back to humanity, or society, civilization is the word I'm looking for, if in fact you know how to use this thing to set it with the sun, put it between the hour marker and 12 o'clock if you're in the northern hemisphere. Listen, there's a lot of rules. You're not going to get it right the first time. You may starve, or be raised by wolves. Either way, you'll have a great story to tell your kids, unless you're dead. Hi! Hi! So I think we've determined not to rely on this as your only source of orienteering, mountaineering, and or getting back to civilization from when you've been lost. That said, I like the heritage in it. I like the idea of it. I myself love going to the mountains. I kind of live in the mountains. I'm lucky in that way, I think. And I love going out into nature. I love exploring. I love getting away from the hustle and bustle of my everyday life. And frankly, there's something about this watch, the heritage in the dial, the fact that it has its own heritage dating back to 1961, the fact that it really is intended to be that weekend, go away, get away kind of watch that can also bring you back. There's something that really captured, my imagination with it. And when I put this thing on the weekend, and I look down to check the time, I do feel like, hey, I'm supposed to be relaxing right now. I'm supposed to be enjoying my life right now. I'm supposed to be exploring and being interested right now. In fact, speaking of exploring, I went back and forth with this Seiko Alpinist versus a Rolex Explorer, the Explorer 1. I do have an Explorer 2. I feel like it's a totally different watch. I feel like they are horses for courses. But the Explorer 1, very similar. So this has the 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 numerals, the Arabics on there. And there's ticks at the other hour markers. The Explorer, as you well know, has the 3, 6, and 9, right? The alternate ones. This has a date, which is really important to me, even on a weekend when I'm supposed to be relaxing. It's good to know what day it is. I love a date on all my watches. I am okay with the fact that it's off to one side and sometimes unbalanced or something on the other half of the watch. I think the functionality of a date is huge for me. In fact, I find myself checking the watch for the date almost as much, if not more, than I check it for the time. I love having the date window. That's part of the reason I went with this versus the Explorer. Certainly the price is really great. The size is very similar. This is a 38 millimeter. There's a new Explorer that's 39 millimeter. The traditional is 36. I feel like this wear is actually a little bigger than the 38, 39 that it's supposed to be. The case with its two crowns kind of helps it be a little bit bigger. That wasn't part of my decision, but it does separate the two of them even more. And I think basically they're intended to be that same kind of watch. It's certainly that kind of watch that says adventure. In fact, it's a little bit crazy. This, as it says on the dial, so I should mention again, the Seiko logo, all one piece, milled out or stamped out of one piece of that gold tone metal, is applied. Looks really nice up at the top. At the bottom in script it says automatic, right? Of course it is. That's interesting because some of the previous Alpinists were not automatic. There are quartz members of the Alpinist family. It then says printed in all capitals, a DiaShock, 23 jewels, 20 bar. Yeah, just at the bottom there, not being auspicious, 20 bar of water resistance. That, if memory serves, is 600 and many. It's deep. It's 200 meters water resistance. This thing's a diver. Now, of course, it's got no rotating bezel, so you don't know when you're going to run out of air. So just like it'll get you lost in the mountains and killed by a mountain lion, it'll also have you drown underwater. Don't dive with it, especially not on the leather NATO. I hate it when people put a leather NATO on a diver. It really bothers me. Why is that? Even a leather strap, not the right thing to do. In any case, don't do either of those two things thinking this is going to keep you alive. There's like a tank with air in the mountains. There's a compass and a helicopter that can come, or a guide or a map. There's all kinds of things you need, quite frankly. Backpack, tent, food. But 200 meters water resistance. You can swim in it. You can wash your hands in it. You can do whatever it is that you do and not have to worry about this watch. I think that's amazing. Like for a land watch, really, it's clearly not an air watch, not a pilot's watch, not a GMT. It's not truly a diver. It doesn't have the dive time bezel. It doesn't have that big case. It doesn't have the big pop of high legibility. It's really a land watch, and yet it still has 200 meters of water resistance. Pretty cool. Really means that you don't have to think about it. It's your go anywhere, kick around, get things done. I hesitate to say beater watch because it's so nice, but it could be. It's something you don't need to be consciously aware of all the time and being careful with everywhere you go. We talked about the applied indices. We talked about the chapter ring. The hands themselves, those squalette-style hands, I do believe, are quite beautiful, right? An extended, not quite a Mercedes hands, right, like you'd usually expect. A little bit Rolex-y, if I'm being honest, right? But extended, ovalized, not the perfect round with that Mercedes symbol, so to speak, right in the middle. This has been stretched out and has a little more curve to it. The skeletonization is at the base of the hand, and then they're filled with lume for two different segments, right, the last two segments. And the lume on this watch is not overwhelming. Again, it's not a diver, but it worked great. In the dark, it really comes to life. The amount of lume is not too much, but the quality of it really surprised me when I first saw it in the dark. It's just a little bit around the outside edge, those little pips that I talked about before, the little snowballs, and then the hands are really well lumed. It's pretty clear to see at any time what time it is, as long as you know which way the dial is facing up. Now the movement is that famed Seiko 6R017. You can hear the rotor bouncing around inside. You can also hear it quite clearly when it winds. It is very much like the 7S26 in my SKX. It's based off of that movement, but as you know, with the addition of hacking and hand winding. Mine ran exceptionally well, within 5 seconds plus or minus a day for most of the time I had it, and now it's running pretty poorly. It's running about negative 18 seconds a day, but I think all that is that it's totally worn in. I think the mechanism's worn in. I think it's found its sort of new happy place, and all I need to do is go get it regulated. So I'm not too worried about it until my watchmaker tells me something's wrong. The back, of course, has the Seiko water-resistant 20-bar stainless steel. It does say the movement 6R15000E1, and it says made in Japan, which it is, which is lovely. Has the serial number stamped on there as well, and then, of course, in the center, that historical Alpinist logo. It's just another sort of throwback to the heritage of this watch. It is one of the first named watches in the Seiko line back in the Laurel days. As a matter of fact, you can read all about it. There's a really great resource available online that walks through all the different editions of the Seiko Alpinist and shows pictures and the collectability, the differences between them. I think it's really nice. Take a look. I won't bore you with those details. I also won't rip them off. But as we're looking at the back of the case, there's also a nice machined, satinized kind of finish on the back there with circular machining that goes into a high polish for the screw-down case back, high polish on the sides of the case, a bit of an oyster-inspired case, if I do say so myself. Again, very similar, I would say, to that Rolex Explorer style case. I don't think it's ripping it off. I don't think it's a copy. I think it's just they're similar watches for similar intentions, and this kind of case design makes sense for both. Has a nice brushed finish on the top of the lugs, super sharp lugs at the bottom, right? They come to a very fine finish. And then the bevel between the polished sides and the top of the case is a pretty wide bevel. Again, another polished section that just gives that nice angle there. Then, of course, on top of that is essentially this bezel, which is just all polished on every surface, very clear. And then the sapphire crystal sits just a millimeter or two proud of that bezel to take some of those dings and nicks and knocks that you get when you just have a glancing blow, which I think is great because it is a sapphire crystal. It's not a hardlex crystal. And it's super strong and it's going to take those without scratching. The Seiko sign, or at least signed with an S, the crown here, is a screw-down crown. Unscrews very easily, pops out, and, you know, the crown is a good size, fits in. It's not knurled, it is machined like a cog. Again, something that is very toolish, right? It looks like it's a gear that's meant to mesh with maybe the other crown, right? The gear wheels there could work together. The operation of the movement, hacks in the second position, of course. Very positive action. Not a lot of play in the action when you're setting the time. On my version, the date change starts at about, well, let's see, about 10:30 p.m. Get through, now it's 11 o'clock, moving my way a little bit more, and at midnight, date change completes, snaps down to the next day. The hand stack's beautiful. Underneath, the hole in the dial where the hands come through, maybe a little bigger than it needs to be. I can also see the shaft that the hands go onto. Not the end of the world. Nobody's looking at their watch like this. You'll be fine. All in all, I just think it's an amazing watch. I look forward to wearing it every weekend. If you're remotely interested in it, do your best to get your hands on one. Because I think, from what I've read and from what I've heard, people are a little afraid of the green. And then you combine that with gold and silver and green and white and black in the date wheel. It sounds like it's too much. Somehow it's not. It comes together beautifully. It looks very classic. It looks like it could have been handed down to me by my grandfather. It looks like it's from another time, but it's serving the time that we're in now. Don't let the green put you off. Don't let the gold put you off. Check them out. Long and storied history. Do check out that page I talked about. And if you like this review, leave a comment. Thanks to those of you that have been leaving comments, that have been subscribing up till now. I really appreciate it. I hope this does justice to the watch. The Alpinist is amazing. I'll be going through some more. You'll be seeing that other Seiko, maybe that Explorer 2 I talked about, a couple other watches that I've got in the collection. I appreciate you watching. Have a good one.